Hello, hello! Strider here, back at you with the latest and greatest tips and tricks from Pokemon Masters EX. Today I just wanted to make a quick, hopefully quick, video upon request. I had a couple of requests from my subscribers. They wanted me to do a video about how to clear the current Champion Stadium using free-to-play characters. I have been partaking in a draft. You might have heard me talk about draft. I'm going to make a video talking about what that is in more detail. But basically, it's something that I do with some of the other seasoned players of this game to make it a little bit more challenging and fun. And it's a fun social interaction challenge to see if you can use severely limited characters to clear. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to showcase exactly what I'm talking about. I might jump into a stage to showcase one particular request, but I'm just going to talk about it and it will be brief. So yeah, let's get into it. We're going to go and talk about this week of Champion Stadium. This week we have a couple new elements to the stadium, which is kind of exciting. It's nice to see things mixed up. Particularly Lance this week has a fairy weakness, and Blue also is using Alakazam, which has a bug weakness. So we have a couple new weaknesses, and there's a really cool new parameter. So if you've watched my other videos, you should know that what I recommend when you start doing the Champion Stadium is to make sure that you plan ahead and kind of know every single team that you want to use for every single stage and which round you're going to tackle it in. This is very important. The rounds do matter. I can't tell you how many times I had people say to me, I'm struggling to take down Bruno, it's so hard. And I say, what round are you doing it? And they say, round 1, the first round. Well, Bruno doesn't, the first parameter this week is, the first parameter this week is to use physical attacks, basically, because special attacks are going to be reduced in the battle. But if you remember my tips and tricks video, Bruno only uses physical attacks, so you want to use special attacks against him pretty much, which means you're going in using special attacks on a stage where special attacks are reduced. So you're actually hindering yourself, whereas Bruno is not being hindered at all because he does not use a single special attack. Right now, if things stay the current way they are, Bruno only uses physical attacks, Agatha only uses special attacks, and Lorelei has a special sync, but her monsters use a mix of attacks. There are some pretty heavy physical attacks there, so you need kind of have a tank that can tank both physical and special. And the same goes with Lance. He uses a mix of physical and special. He's kind of the opposite of Lorelei, where he has a physical sync, but uses pretty strong special attack moves. So those are things that you should be aware of. So knowing that, you definitely do not want to go against Bruno on stage 1. The most likely candidate for round 1 would be Agatha this week, because as I said, she only uses special attacks. Right? So the first thing that I would recommend doing whenever a new Champion Stadium resets, come to the Champion Stadium, click on the button and check out the parameters. This will help you get an idea of which teams you can build against which parameters to use that would be best against which stage. The first one this week is using, you want to use physical attacks pretty much. Basically, you want to go up against the stage that uses special attacks. So that would be either Lorelei or Agatha. Most likely Agatha would be the first one I would go against. So knowing that makes your choice pretty easy. Second round this week is this is the really cool one. This is a new one this week, and it's basically gives you permanent field effects. So what does that mean? That means if you're going to use a weather move, like if you're setting the sun or setting rain or setting hail or sand, instead of that wearing out, it's going to stay up for the whole stage. So you can just set it right at the beginning and then take the advantage of that. It's good. That's really, really going to change things. It makes it really easy in my opinion. So number one thing you want to do with round 2 is you want to look, I'd say the best thing to do would be then to go against Bruno with the Rain, if you have a Rain setter. Right now we have Winona is the only one that you can get as a gacha unit that sets Rain, but if you were lucky enough to pull a one of the Eggmons right here, there's Winona. If you were able to pull, let's say, there you go, Tech Squirtle has Rain Dance as well. So even if you don't have Winona or you've used Winona on another stage for some reason and you want to use Rain on the round 2, if you got yourself a Tech Squirtle, you're good to go as well. What other units would be good for round 2? Bruno is obviously number 1 choice to go against round 2 if you can set up Rain, I think, personally. If you were able to pull Volkner would be great against Lorelei. Volkner, if you didn't know, his whole gimmick is, there he is in the background. His whole gimmick is that he brings the first terrain setting. So if you were to go against Volkner and let's see, where is he? Right here. Yeah, he can set electric terrain. So that would be permanent. So if you have Volkner, maybe another idea would be to go against Lorelei in round 2. Oops, that's not where I want to go. Round 2 would be, obviously Lorelei is weak to electric, and if you have permanent electric terrain and you have your Volkner, you can just use him to attack. Or if you have How, Player Pikachu, which you obviously have, Zebra Striker, at least Alessa, then you're good to go too. So yeah, even Clement destroys things in the electric terrain. So those are the top 2, depending on the units you have. Another one you might want to use is Hail against Agatha, although unlike electric terrain, Rain, and Sun, Hail does not boost ice moves. But there are some units that can take advantage of it. Like for example, if you want to use Blizzard with Lorelei, or if you want to use Candace, who sets the Hail, as a sync nuke. She gets a sync nuke in the Hail. There are also some other units that have Snow Shelter or healthy Hail healing. So that's an idea. But not only weather is affected by this new parameter number 2, anything that affects the field effects. So Sabrina gets light screen. I don't want to go here. Sabrina gets light screen. Let's see, let's just do this. So, no. Sabrina gets reflect, right? So if you want to set up reflect, that adds anything that says, you see over here it says field of play, right? Anything that affects the field of play is going to be permanent. So you just set up reflect at the beginning of the battle and you have a permanent 50% reduction in physical attacks the whole time, which would be great again going against Bruno or Lance particularly. The flip side of that, kind of the opposite, would be to use Lyra. Lyra also has light screen. I mentioned light screen before. I meant Lyra has light screen, so you can see she has stuff that adds to the field of play. This would be the opposite, the kind of the counterpart to reflect, which would give you a 50% reduction in special attacks would be reduced. So you would use this against Agatha, Lorelei, or even Blue this week, who has very heavy hitting special attacks. So yeah, Lyra is like a top candidate, because if you have her gridded as well, she gets Solarize, and Solarize allows you to set up the sun. So using Lyra with this effect allows you to set up permanent sun, which if you have maybe speeding sun or healthy healing sun, she can take advantage of that the whole time. You can even maybe give her solar flare to give a sync nuke with this. And then you can also set up permanent reflect sorry, light screen, and have that special attack reduction. So Lyra is really good with this parameter. Think about units like that. There are a few others that take advantage of this, but their utility is a bit limited, right? So one of the supports here, actually all the supports, the Rosanta gives all the presents, so she makes move gauge accelerate on the field of play. So if you use this move, all the presents, with Rosanta, if you were lucky enough to get her, then you have a permanent gauge acceleration for the whole battle, which is crazy. If you pulled on Blue's banner, he also has that with his trainer move, the move gauge accelerate on the field of battle. So yeah, either one of those can give you permanent move gauge acceleration.
Hey, Strider here, post-production. I just realized while I was editing this that I forgot actually a really important one, and that is Jasmine. If you were able to pull Jasmine and Steelix, Jasmine has the move Clang, which also does add a critical hit defense, aka vigilance, and stat reduction, which is basically impervious onto the field of play. So if you find any stages that are using lots of crits to go through your defenses, crit attacks, or if they're like spamming you with moves that are lowering your speed or lowering your attack or your defense, then you want to maybe use Jasmine as well on your team for round 2 and set up permanent vigilance on all of your units and permanent impervious on all your units. Yeah, she's a great choice, and I can't believe I forgot her. Sorry, Jasmine. Okay, back to the video.
And finally, the last one that can take advantage of this is Marley, to a lesser extent. Her TM blocks status conditions, so any of the units that would try to paralyze you or poison you or burn you, you would be permanently protected against that. I don't think there are any units in Champion Stadium that do that, that try to status you. Correct me if I'm wrong. And likewise, another unit that has a similar thing is Wallace. His Grand Illusion sets up actually the same thing, except for his is a reflect. So if they try to status you, it would reflect back onto them. So it's kind of a little bit of a better buff, but you only get one of them, obviously. But you don't need more than one if it's permanent. Great, so round 2, there are tons of options now. That's pretty exciting that you can do. Again, my top option would be for round 2 to go against Bruno. Finally, round 3 is use sync moves quickly. We talked about that. That's like a truncated sync countdown. Normally when you start the stage, you have to use 9 moves before you can use your sync attack. But for this parameter, you only have to use 5. So if you have any units that can accelerate sync gauge already, like with a head start, I think Signasuit Grims gets that on his grid, and Signasuit Cynthia automatically gets it. Rotom, Signasuit Elisa, has leg up, which procs about 50% of the time. So those might be good to use to make sure that you can maybe get your sync in one move rather than 2 rounds. I mean 1 round rather than 2 rounds. Another good way to take advantage of this is if you have megas. So for example, Pidgeot can mega really quickly. Agatha, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but she can get to Mega Gengar in like a second. And obviously Metagross. Another way to use this is if you had units that set up weather with sync, like Summer Steven. If you wanted to get the hail up right away, that might be something that you would want to do. Or again, Ho-Oh and Lyra can set up the sun if you wanted that early. Finally, with round 3, you might want to use it with very quick to set up sync nukes, like how if you have him grid it, gets inertia, he needs to max out his speed to use it, right? But there you go. But he can max out his speed in just 2 moves because he drastically raises his speed. So you can get 3 the first time, 3 the second time, and then by then you're ready to sync. So he already has his sync move ready to go and fired up. Plumeria Gridit can do that if you use her trainer move wisely. She can max out her speed with inertia as well. Just a few like that. So think about who you have and what you want to use with that round. And then the last parameter for this week is to not die. This is a difficult one, especially if you're trying to do free-to-play units, which I'm going to talk about today. Anytime somebody on your team dies, your whole team gets debuffed. So you lose 1 stage of attack, defense, special attack, special defense, and speed, which is not what you want when you're going up tough enemies. But on the flip side of that, if you eliminate one of the enemies on their side, their whole team gets debuffed in all the stats, except for crit and evasion and stuff like that. But yeah, so if you can lower their defense just by killing them, lower their attack, they'll be doing less damage and they'll be easier to kill. So it's basically who can kill who first. So you want to save this parameter you want to look at your units, see which one fits up with where. Do you have rain setter, weather setters and stuff like that you want to use? Do you have strong physical attackers that are super effective against either Agatha or Lorelei to go up in round 1? Do you have a mega unit or a unit that can sync nuke really quickly that would be good for round 3? And after you look at all that, make sure that you have your strongest team, cohesive team, going up last against whatever unit you have, whatever stage you can go against, because you don't want to die. You want to kill them, and that will make it easier for you. And then obviously blue has his special parameter. This is the one that allows status conditions to hit easier and cause more damage, and then you can choose one of the other ones that you did in the earlier rounds. So we'll talk about that. Alright, so that's round 1. The first thing you should do every time a Champion Stadium gets reset, look at the parameters and start planning around them.